I originally got fully solar pilled by Ramez Nam, if you know him. And he put out some of those charts that basically showed just the learning curves, right? And so every doubling of cumulative capacity, he was projecting that the levelized cost of electricity for solar was falling 20%. When he relooked at those numbers 10 years later or whatever it was in the early 2020s, turns out it was like 40%. And so I started, following these curves. And in fact, when we went down to Mexico to start Bright, what we were literally looking for is, okay, where do you cross the point where, self-generation basically becomes cheaper than grid electricity. So I was following that for solar, and then, batteries were the missing piece. And I've been following, lithium ion batteries have had that 25% learning curve. And it seems like we're finally crossing that tipping point where solar plus storage is the cheapest thing in the world. Two questions for you. One, is that true in your base experience? In most places of the world, can solar plus storage disrupt all other existing forms of electricity? And two, whether we're there yet or not, it's close. Why has it taken so long for the world to see these trends? You saw them 15 years ago. Like, why was that such a secret?
So to answer your first question, is it true for the most of the world? So you're asking the physics and then the geography question. I can tell you it's true in California. And it is very much a geographic-based question for two reasons. Resource availability, so solar irradiance, and two, power market rules. The reason why it makes sense in California is that we have the sun, we have the resource, and our power markets are set up in a regulated market that the way electricity is costed out to retail customers, it is a lot more than the rest of the country. You look at the map of the 50 states, and it's color coded by intensity of electricity cost. I think I showed it here at our last presentation. California stands out, very bright, and you can see the cost. Next door, Nevada is not anywhere near California.
California always wins. The God's country, right?
That geographic line has nothing to do with electrons or with solar availability. That all has to do with the retail pricing of electricity. So we are in a position in California that solar plus battery, self-generation, it has been cheaper than the grid for quite some time. What's interesting, and that was our bet from way back when, that if you do solar now, and back then we didn't have batteries on our radar because it wasn't a thing. Like batteries came into effect after hurricane, it was the hurricane in the East Coast, 2012,
Sandy.
2013. I'm talking Sandy, that like people started to think about batteries for backup power because the grid went out. But back then it was just solar, and the bet really was, look, we can get solar now. It's a fixed cost, hedge against utility inflation of 3 to 5%, and over 20 years you win. It's a very modest bet. Now, you go from pre-COVID to this time, we've had double-digit rate growth in California.
Wow.
You do a CAGR of that over 6-7 years, you get to pretty much double your cost. And it's been like, frog in a boiling pot kind of thing. Like people are all of a sudden waking up like, shit, we are dying. Like our utility cost is now double what it was.
I got, just as a data point, I didn't even track that closely in my own apartment because, I left for 5 years and I was in Mexico. And, whatever, my utility bills used to be like $40 or $60. Right? I got my first like $120 bill recently. And I was literally like shocked because I barely use the electricity in my house.
Oh, dude. And
that was a wake up.
You're in San Francisco, which is one of the most, from an energy use intensity, EUI, it's the most efficient geographies in the US, I believe. Cool climate. We have small spaces, but we don't electrify much. Like we don't have heating, enough cooling, right? So our bills are like very low. Should be very low.
Should be.
You go to like Fresno, right? Central California. Dude, there are homes that have $1,000 bills.
Well, because the AC's got to run all the time.
I mean, and they got to like clean the air because they have like dust and pollution. It's crazy. And it is, we are now at the position where, if there was a notion of like pushing to get business, now we're getting pulled. That's why it took so long to get this interview with you set up, because I can't make the time.
This is a busy man right here, ladies and gentlemen.
The days are long, but very fulfilling. Because people are struggling. Like we do have an energy affordability crisis in California.
We have an energy crisis, period, right?
Period. Generally, nationally, that's a whole bigger conversation. I'm sure we'll get to the data centers with you in a moment. But in California itself, we have an affordability crisis. It's not as loud because the people that are suffering for it are the minorities, the quieter people that don't get as much visibility. But from the businesses I work with, my customers, I do see in their public recordings and in the conversations I have with them, as they're planning for their operational growth or reliability, electricity is the question that's top of their mind.
Yep.
And like we cannot do growth and have reliable operations without solving the energy problems in California.
So let's start with that, with the energy problem in California. Why have electricity costs been going up at a double-digit CAGR?
There's a few good reasons behind that in California. Or good or I would say direct contribution for it. Aging infrastructure.
Yes.
And we are an older state, bigger state, trying to grow. Infrastructure costs get rate-based at a guaranteed rate of return by the utilities.
For most of the audience, that's going to sound confusing. What does that mean when you say it's rate-based?
Oh, so utilities charge you for the electricity you use. That's called a rate, right? That's their revenue. That's how they get their money in the top line revenue that comes in. The utilities in California are essentially privately owned, right? They're not like public entities. They're regulated by California Public Utilities Commission, but they have private investors. As part of the re-regulation in California, essentially a deal was made that in order for the private investors to make money, every time they spend money on infrastructure, like poles and wires, they get a guaranteed rate of return of about 10%, give or take. In order for them to recover that interest, that profit on the investment that they make, these investors, that money has to come from the revenues, i.e. electricity rates that we pay. So when we say rate-based, means your profits have to come from electricity payments, right? Electricity bill that they collect from you as the ratepayer.
But one thing I want to just be super, super clear on, because I think, and particularly for some of the more sort of Bitcoin mind, this is going to sound like, I wonder why it's regulated in this way. The rate-based, the tariffs that they're charging and the sort of rate of return that they're getting on those investments, those are decided by the
CPUC,
Utility
California
Commission.
Public Utilities. Yeah, they propose it. CPUC, the Public Utility Commission, goes through it. Usually like pushes back on them. Recently, just to get a sense of numbers, the utilities go to CPUC and have asked for like an 18% increase.
The fuck?
And then CPUC pushes back and they come down to 13%.
Right.
So that's the kind of numbers we're talking about in California right now.
And just to be clear, when I hear this, and you're much more in the details, but this is what I've always thought about, it sounds an awful lot like when there's a couple dudes in a room licking their fingers saying, I actually think treasuries are going to yield about 4.5%. I don't know, man. Like, why do we not have a market setting that rate?
I mean, that's the rule of this geography. California decided, has voted, that's our government, that's how we've decided to secure our energy independence, energy market.
Right.
Texas does it differently, right? Like there's different ways every geography votes to do it.
Right.
We have chosen this, right? And how that changes, that's a whole other process of that changes. But the calculation that goes into it, I can tell you, the three causes are, and these are prevailing, grid hardening infrastructure because grid is aging. The high wind events are causing damage, so the utilities have to like bury lines and secure, upgrade. Those are capital costs that will contribute to electricity costs going up to the consumers, the ratepayers. Wildfire mitigation in California, we don't tax base that, right? Like when a location sets on fire and there's damage and there's costs to be paid, we don't tax that local geography to recover those funds. You could do that, but the decision in California is we put that into our electric rates.
So let me get this straight. What exactly goes in electric? Like when Malibu burned down, the rebuilding of that is going to go into the electric rate?
The infrastructure costs to rebuild all of that,
but not
goes into rates.
Okay, so when you say the infrastructure costs, more than just the poles and wires for electricity, like for example the roads and
the lawsuits, the damages, whatever. Like if the utility got sued and they had to pay like $10 million or whatever, or $10 billion, whatever it is, that money
that gets rate based.
That gets rate based.
Okay, I'm now beginning to understand why costs are skyrocketing.
That comes in.
Okay.
And then there is the
privatize the gains, socialize the losses.
There's a lot of that, yeah. And then there's the goal to be 100% renewable in California, SP 100. That is going to require us now as the next stage to go get bulk power from outside the geographic boundaries of the state, primarily from wind, either from eastern states or go off the coast of the Pacific. To do that, you have to build transmission lines. Mm-hmm. Those transmission lines are infrastructure. That cost will be rate-based. These three factors, like grid hardening to prevent more fires, the cost of repair for more fires that unfortunately are going to happen, bulk transmission projects, those are three key factors that are going to continue, have led to the cost increases so far and are going to continue to create that.
So one very specific point I'd like to better understand is I've been going deep on transmission and distribution costs. And just to be clear, so the transmission, that's like the sort of high voltage, longer distances you're shipping electricity. And then the distribution would be sort of like the mini roads that go from home to home or whatever. Yeah. Could you give us a sense of like, what is the rough cost for each of those? If you think about it in a sort of in the levelized cost of electricity sense, and why are those specifically so high? Like I've been trying to get, and we're going to talk more about the possibilities for off grid and a new grid and my crazy out there thesis. But as the general trend I've observed is it used to be that generation of electricity was about half the cost, transmission and distribution about half, but increasingly transmission and distribution are becoming, because solar and storage, which we'll talk more about, keep falling, these prices for transmission and distribution keep rising. Some of that, I'm sure, is all the things you already told us, but it also looks like there's issues like transformers. Like no one can get transformers. There's a huge shortage. Yeah. What else is going on there? And like, what is your sense for why transmission and distribution is getting so damn expensive?
Yeah. So first, to answer the question of like portion of cost that is transmission distribution versus generation.
Yeah.
So when we started, it used to be that it was about 60-70% generation, 30% or so distribution transmission on your electric bill.
Yep.
Now it's 50-50 and it's trending the other way.
Okay.
And if the same trend, the market rules continue, forecast out 20 years from now, it will be all transmission distribution. Essentially, the grid will be a tax for being able to connect to it, which I don't think it will happen because at some point there will be enough people disconnecting. Like it will start to make sense to get off the grid because it's like, why pay this tax? I don't want to be part of this anymore.
Exactly.
I'll go build a home somewhere else and I'll be off grid.
The utility death spiral, as it used to be called,
is coming. And before it gets there, things will get much worse. But before it actually death spirals, we will have another re-regulation in California. Okay. I believe in 2030s, we will have that. There will be another reset that will happen in the state. And why it's happening is cost of generation is coming down, right? Gas generation has gotten a lot cheaper over the past decade and a half. Solar and wind has come online. Batteries came, they were expensive, but now grid scale batteries are crushing it.
Oh, dude.
I mean, it's like
the battery game is insane.
Like batteries are now eating more batteries. Like it's just like, the early on batteries were making good money. Now more batteries are coming online and the game is getting more like sophisticated. And the peak demands are like going down.
Yeah.
The problems we used to have, like this duck curve that we've had,
there is no more duck curve.
Temporarily duck curve, and it will go away.
Yeah.
Because the pace of deployment to essentially help wholesale market costs come down the pace has been up and to the right, cost down and to the right.
Yeah. And it keeps getting cheaper, just like solar. Solar and batteries. I mean, this is the key. If there's one key idea I would love everyone to take away as they think about these things, it's the same thing as like Moore's Law. When you and interestingly, very similar, right? We're talking about silicon-based essentially circuits that were just getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper as you can print them and getting thinner and thinner for solar. And batteries also benefit from the same economies of scale in manufacturing. So unlike a lot of the other energy technologies, these just keep getting cheaper and cheaper.
And they're not customized. Like, you build one coal plant, build one coal plant, right? Like I'm sure there's similarities in coal plants or nuclear plants, like in some way or form. But the learning curve isn't as fast.
Exactly.
Like solar, batteries, these things have very high learning curves. Like you learn it on one job, your next job will be cheaper.
Exactly.
So on and so forth. You add 10 plus years of that, you get a lot of those learnings like happen in place.
The magic of compounding.
there's still more to go. But then on the electric bill side, like you as a homeowner or a business paying for your electricity, because there's certain fixed costs to run the grid, right? And people are either making more energy efficient decisions or they're putting solar on their roofs. The utilities have to figure out a way to recover their costs, right? So then they start to costs associated of, okay, you'll pay for your electricity because of this component, we'll put more towards transmission distribution charges versus generation charges or energy charges. So that portion of your bill starts to get smaller and T&D starts to get bigger.
Mm-hmm.
That's on the cost accounting side of it.
Right.
But at the actual installation construction level, I mean, that's just like labor and materials, right? Like poles and wires, that is union labor work in California. That is, you gotta order like big steel, big copper, big transformer. These are all, heavy machinery, heavy type work that just keeps getting more and more expensive every year. The last estimate was like to build a mile of transmission, it's like $2 million a mile or something like that. Like some crazy number.
And what does that translate to on the LCOE, the levelized cost of electricity? Like, are we talking like 5 cents a kilowatt hour?
LCOE, the calculations are all done at the generation source. Yeah. So you compare the generation cost coming out of a gas plant, coal plant, solar, battery.
Yeah.
Add in the transmission distribution really has to do a matter of geography. Are you bringing that power from the middle of a desert to a city? Or is the power being generated on site? It's like solar on my rooftop doesn't have to go much far. Yeah. Solar from middle of a desert has to travel a lot.
Totally.
Same thing with the gas plant. It has to go through the grid.
Yeah.
So those add to the delivery cost of the power, not necessarily the LCOE of it.
Right. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is like, $2 million a mile. If you had to try and like sort of levelize that in a way of like, okay.
Oh yeah, you pay for the whole transmission distribution.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have to be project by project basis to see what would be the cost added to a project. So you have a 50 megawatt gas plant, right? That produces 80% uptime, 70% uptime. Do the math of generation there and then add the total cost of build out plus the transmission distribution lines.
Well, so to be clear, let's say, what's the average cost that a ratepayer pays in California? Like 15 cents a kilowatt hour now?
Oh no, dude, those are old numbers.
I'm embarrassed.
You like residential in PG&E territory, you would be paying like 40 to 60 cents.
Get the fuck out.
Where you are. Oh yeah.
Are you serious?
Commercial, industrial, you're at 25, 35 cents.
Holy shit. Okay. I clearly haven't made attention to my bill that much.
No, it's a lot, man. It is not we're not a cheap state.
But to be clear, Texas is what, like 7?
Oh no, actually, I don't know how
much lower than California.
I don't know what they pay exactly, and their market is quite different. Like your energy is like disconnected from your delivery side. Well, I know they're doing a lot of solar and battery there too. So
yeah. Okay. So back to the transmission distribution. So you mentioned, okay, there's all these different costs are going, union labor, and you have to get the right steel, and there's a shortage on transformers, which I'm curious why there's a shortage on transformers as well. But let's say you're doing this like first principles analysis. How cheap could you get it? Let's say you didn't have to use union labor. You could use, I don't know, an Optimus robot.
Yeah.
Or let's say, whatever, you were able to negotiate whatever you wanted for these materials. Like from a very first principles perspective, how cheap could transmission distribution be? Or is it just that the things we need, there are shortages of them and it's going to be expensive no matter what?
I mean, why is it expensive now? I think we're dealing with a few big trends. One, de-industrialization in the US, right? We have not been making as much stuff.
Yeah.
Followed by COVID that disrupted a lot of things in production. And then now we've been caught off guard with, oh shit, we have to go build a lot of stuff because we need the power, right?
Because the robots are coming.
I mean, at least the robots inside the data centers are here, and then the next wave of robots the actual robots will be here.
Yeah.
That's why we're behind, and it's a big shortage, and costs are going up and ballooning. We are in a pinch, as best as I can describe it. How much cheaper could it all get if it goes to zero? I mean, cost of energy generation, I can tell you with solar at large scale, is quite low, right? It's not firm. It's not, it's intermittent. But with batteries, you can get a bit more extension out of it. And I don't quite know long duration storage, where it's going to fall out. I feel every time I look at it, There's like interesting long duration energy storage companies that are trying to do stuff, but then lithium ion just keeps getting cheaper and you just add more packs and more packs. And
learning rates, baby. Just trust the curves.
With 2-hour batteries, now it's 4. Now we're looking at 8. Just double the lithium ion pack, and it's the same inverter. So I don't know where that ends up, but I would bet lithium ion is here, and or lithium phosphate is here, and it will keep going. But look, at a really big scale, you are getting down to like sub 5 cents a kilowatt hour for cost of electricity coming out of these plants.
And that's solar plus storage.
Solar plus storage, yeah.
So I want to be very clear, because I feel like the audience probably is not going to have any idea. And I'm going to be careful now, because clearly my numbers are still from 2014. But, to sort of just level set. So something like natural gas is, the cheapest sort of fossil fuel, steady state sort of power that we have access to. And that's something, it used to be around 7-8 cents a kilowatt hour. Is that still fair? Something like that?
I think so, yeah.
So let's just call it 7-8 cents. Meanwhile, solar alone in very sunny regions of the world, I've seen like in Abu Dhabi and even in Mexico.
They're like doing it for like a penny. Like it's insane.
1 cent a kilowatt hour. Like it's almost fucking free. Like I just want to get that point across, because I don't think many people just like understand, they're like, oh, nat gas and this. It's like, yeah, we get it. You like nat gas, 7 cents, 1 cent. What are you going to build? Now, to be clear, solar, obviously intermittent.
Yeah.
But and this is the thing that I've been getting deeper and deeper on, is this just how much can you overbuild solar plus storage? Because for me, the holy grail is if you can get solar plus storage to under 3, maybe even under 2 cents a kilowatt hour. The big question I have as you overbuild is, and this is the core thesis that I just wrote. For those of you who are listening to this, maybe the paper will have dropped by the time this comes out. My new paper, which is it's time to build a new grid. And the fundamental thesis was very sort of heavily influenced by this Casey Hannemer guy. I don't know if you've seen, he's been making the rounds on all the podcasts, excellent blog, Caltech dude. Okay. And he put out a post in 2020. I've been following his stuff for some while. He was also Ramez non-pill, back when I was. And, one of the fundamental things he basically says is like, look, solar plus storage is going to get so damn cheap that even if, the utility starts getting its act together, T&D, transmission distribution costs, are going to be too high to basically ever interconnect with the grid. It's a very radical statement. I know that sounds kind of batshit, but then you start thinking about it. It's like, if we can really get sub 2 cents kilowatt hour, we can just go bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Why would I pay the 5 to 10 cents a kilowatt hour to connect to the grid? I get reliability. I get there's like black swan insurance, but dude, what do you say to that?
I will give you like what I get paid to do.
Yes.
I mean, this isn't like, the hypothetical, like in Abu Dhabi, they're doing this thing, which is true. They're doing it there. They have all a desert. They also don't have any labor laws.
Right.
That's their geography, their rules.
Right.
They have to sort it out. We have our geography, our rules.
Right.
So like, I'm not looking for a penny per kilowatt hour for solar. Right?
Not yet.
And I mean, I think we will get there.
Yeah,
but I'm not like today, my business doesn't exist because we have a penny per kilowatt hour solar.
Right.
We're much higher than that, especially at the commercial scale, 5 megawatt, that kind of size. But the notion of over-provisioning, overbuilding solar, it is very much part of the calculus.
Right.
Like, we're not afraid of overbuilding solar.
Right.
That is actually inherent in the economics of what makes sense.
Yep.